Right now, millions of plastic bottles are heading toward trash cans across America, while gardeners are spending hundreds of dollars buying products those same bottles could replace. And before this video ends, one simple bottle hack could completely change the way you water, grow, and protect your garden this summer. I'm not talking about vague recycling tips here. I'm talking about specific, tested bottle hacks that genuinely outperform products you'd otherwise be buying at a garden center for real money. By the end of this video, you'll know 13 practical bottle hacks that actually work, plus a couple of fast bonus tricks along the way, not gimmicks. You'll know easier ways to water your garden through a heat wave, better seed starting systems that beat anything sold in a plastic tray, and clever tricks that most gardeners never even consider because they've been tossing the exact tool they needed straight into the recycling bin. Here's why this matters right now. Summer heat is punishing gardens across the country, and water restrictions in a lot of areas are making it harder to keep everything alive without hovering over your hose every single day. Gardening costs keep climbing right along with everything else. Self-watering pots, raised bed kits, and seed starting trays all cost more than they used to. More Americans than ever are growing at least some of their own food at home, whether that's a full backyard vegetable patch or a handful of herb pots on a kitchen windowsill, which means more people are running into these exact same problems every single season. And honestly, turning something you were about to throw away into something that actually saves your tomatoes feels a lot better than just recycling it and moving on without a second thought. There's also a bigger picture here worth mentioning. The average American household goes through a genuinely surprising number of plastic bottles in a given month, and most of them get recycled at best, or tossed straight into the trash at worst. Redirecting even a fraction of those into your garden means fewer dollars spent replacing store-bought tools, and a garden that's a little more resilient against the exact conditions that tend to wreck it: heat, inconsistent watering, and pests that show up the moment a plant looks even slightly vulnerable. Before we get started, I'd love to know where you're watching from and how many plastic bottles you think your family goes through in a typical week. Let me know in the comments, because some of these ideas work even better depending on your climate. Let's get into it. Number 1. The watering basics. Watering is where most gardeners lose the most time, the most money, and honestly the most plants, especially in peak summer heat. These first 3 hacks tackle that problem directly. Self-watering bottle system. This is exactly what it sounds like, and it's the hack most people have half heard of but never actually built correctly. It works because a slow, steady drip keeps soil consistently moist instead of swinging between soaked and bone dry, which is what actually stresses plants out in summer heat. It benefits container vegetables and potted flowers most, anything that dries out fast in a small amount of soil. You'll need a clean plastic bottle, a small nail or drill bit, and a bit of cotton string or cloth if you want to slow the flow further. Poke several small holes in the cap, or remove the cap entirely, and stuff the opening loosely with cloth. Fill the bottle with water, flip it upside down, and push the neck a few inches into the soil near the plant's root zone. The common mistake is drilling holes too large, which dumps all the water in minutes instead of over a day or two. Start with smaller holes than you think you need. You can always widen them later. A basic self-watering pot at a garden center runs $15 to $25. This costs you a bottle you already had. American gardeners love this one because it's the first bottle hack most people try, and it's usually the moment they realize how much money they've been leaving on the table. The next version of this takes the same idea and pushes it deeper, literally, straight down to the roots that actually need it most. Bottle watering spike. This is a close cousin to the self-watering bottle, but it's specifically designed to get water down to deep roots instead of just wetting the surface. It works because surface watering encourages shallow root systems that struggle in heat, while deep watering trains roots to grow down where soil stays cooler and more consistently moist. Tomatoes, peppers, and anything with a deep root system benefits the most. You'll need a bottle with the bottom cut off and a few small holes poked into the sides near the bottom. Bury the bottle neck down beside your plant, angled slightly, with the cut-off bottom sticking up above the soil, so you can pour water directly in. Water poured into the top travels straight down to the root zone instead of evaporating off the surface. The common mistake is placing it too close to the main stem, which can encourage rot right at the base. Keep it several inches away, angled toward the root spread instead of the stem. Commercial root watering stakes sell for $8 to $15 each. You've now got the same function for free. Scale that same idea up, and you get a version built specifically for the plants that drink the most water in your entire garden. Deep root watering system. For a slightly bigger container or raised bed section, this scaled-up version uses a full 1 or 2 liter bottle instead of a single spike, and it works especially well if you're trying to water less frequently during a heat wave. It's ideal for larger containers, raised bed corners, or anywhere you've got one particularly thirsty plant, like a squash or cucumber. You'll need a larger bottle, a drill or heated nail for cleaner holes, and a bit of landscape fabric or mesh if you want to keep soil from clogging the holes over time. Drill a ring of small holes around the lower third of the bottle, bury it most of the way into the soil near the plant, and fill through the top opening. The common mistake here is forgetting to check it, since a larger reservoir can lull you into ignoring your plants for too long during genuinely dry stretches. Check every couple of days during peak heat rather than assuming it's handling everything alone. This kind of setup replaces watering globes or drip stakes that often run $10 to $20 for a pack. Most gardeners throw away the one bottle that's actually the most useful for keeping plants alive during a week away from home, and it's coming up soon. But first, let's talk about protecting your plants before they even have a chance to struggle. Number 2, seed starting and protection. Getting a plant successfully from seed to seedling is where a lot of home gardening attempts quietly fail, and these next 2 hacks, plus a fast bonus tip, fix some of the most common reasons why. Most gardeners toss the exact bottle that could have saved their seedlings from a cold snap without ever realizing it. Seed starting greenhouse. A cut plastic bottle makes an almost perfect miniature greenhouse for starting seeds indoors, trapping humidity and warmth exactly the way a purchased seed-starting dome does. It works because consistent warmth and humidity dramatically improve germination rates for most vegetable and flower seeds. Tomatoes, peppers, and basil all respond particularly well to the extra humidity. You'll need a clean bottle cut in half, a small container or pot filled with seed-starting mix, and a bit of tape if you want to hinge the 2 halves together for easy access. Plant your seeds in the container, place the bottom half of the bottle around it as a base if needed, and set the top half over it like a lid, leaving the cap off slightly for airflow. The common mistake is leaving the cap sealed completely, which traps too much moisture and invites mold. Crack it open slightly once you see germination starting. A basic seed-starting dome kit at a garden center runs $8 to $15. This version costs nothing extra. American gardeners love this one specifically because it gets seeds started weeks earlier than direct sowing outside, stretching the whole growing season without spending a dime on equipment. Getting seeds started is only half the battle, though. The next hack protects them the moment they actually go outside. Mini cloche. Once seedlings move outside, they're vulnerable to a late cold snap, wind, or a hungry rabbit before they've had a chance to establish. A bottle cloche solves all 3 at once. It works because it creates a protected microclimate around a young plant, trapping a little warmth while blocking wind and browsing animals. Young transplants of any kind benefit, especially anything planted a bit early in the season. You'll need a bottle with the bottom cut off and the cap removed for ventilation. Simply place it over a young seedling, pushing the cut edge slightly into the soil to anchor it against wind. The common mistake is leaving the cap on, which can cook a seedling on a sunny day even in cool weather, since heat builds up fast inside a sealed bottle. Always leave the top open. Commercial cloches sell for around $5 each, and most gardens need several. Quick bonus tip while you've got the knife out: cut a leftover strip of bottle plastic into a point, write the plant name on it with a permanent marker, and push it into the soil at the start of each row. It survives a full season outdoors, unlike paper tags that fade and disintegrate within weeks. This next trick replaces something people spend $20 buying, and it solves the exact problem of running out of usable growing space. Number 3, space and structure. If you're gardening on a balcony, a small patio, or just a backyard that fills up fast, these next 3 hacks stretch your available space significantly. Vertical herb garden. Herbs don't need much root depth, which makes them perfect for a hanging, space-saving setup built entirely out of bottles. It works because stacking several small growing pockets vertically lets you grow 6 or 8 herb plants in the footprint of a single pot. Basil, thyme, mint, and parsley all thrive in this kind of setup. You'll need several bottles, a sharp knife, sturdy string or wire, and a drill or nail for drainage holes. Cut a rectangular opening in the side of each bottle. Poke drainage holes in the bottom, fill with potting soil, and plant 1 herb per bottle. String them together vertically, or mount them side by side along a fence or railing. The common mistake is skipping drainage holes entirely, which quickly drowns herb roots in a container this small. Always add several holes before filling with soil. A comparable vertical planter system at a garden store can run $25 to $40. This setup costs whatever bottles you already have on hand. It's a favorite for apartment balconies and small patios specifically, since it turns a narrow strip of railing into a small working herb garden without taking up any actual floor space. I'll be honest, the first time I strung these together along my own railing, I genuinely expected them to look cheap and cobbled together. They didn't. A neighbor actually asked where I bought the planter set, and I got a small amount of satisfaction telling her it was 6 water bottles and some leftover twine. But this next bottle hack completely surprised me the first time I tried it, because I didn't expect something this simple to hold up outdoors. Hanging planters. Beyond herbs specifically, bottles make surprisingly sturdy hanging planters for trailing flowers or even small strawberry plants. It works because the bottle shape naturally creates a deep, narrow planting pocket that drains well when set up correctly, and it hangs easily from almost any hook or railing. Trailing petunias, strawberries, and small trailing vines all do well here. You'll need a bottle, a knife, sturdy twine or wire threaded through holes near the top for hanging, and drainage holes in the bottom. Cut an opening in the side large enough to plant into, add your drainage holes, fill with soil, and hang it wherever it'll get appropriate light. The common mistake is hanging it somewhere that gets far more sun and heat than the plant can handle, since a small hanging container dries out fast in direct afternoon sun. Check moisture daily in hot weather, or position it somewhere with a bit of afternoon shade. Store-bought hanging planters run $10 to $20 each. This last one in the section is almost too simple to call a hack, but it's the one you'll reach for constantly once you notice it. Bottle funnel. This one is almost embarrassingly simple, but it solves a genuinely annoying problem: getting water, fertilizer, or soil into a narrow container opening without spilling half of it everywhere. It works because the bottle's existing shape is already a funnel. You're just using it correctly. Anything with a narrow opening benefits, especially self-watering setups and smaller pots. You'll need a bottle with the bottom cut off and the cap removed. That's it. Turn it upside down and use the narrow neck to direct liquid or soil exactly where you want it. The common mistake is cutting the bottom opening too small, which slows down what you're pouring more than necessary. Cut a wide enough opening to pour comfortably. A dedicated garden funnel costs around $6 to $10, and you've just made one for free in about 10 seconds. But the final hacks are the ones experienced gardeners almost never talk about, and they go beyond simple containers into genuinely feeding and protecting your plants. Number 4. Soil and feeding boosters. Healthy soil and consistent nutrients matter as much as water, and these next 2 hacks, plus a quick second use for a bottle you're already reusing, cover both using nothing but bottles you already have. Most homeowners overlook this one entirely, because it doesn't look like a gardening tool until you see it in action. Soil moisture helper. This hack buries a bottle horizontally beneath the soil surface to act as a hidden reservoir that slowly releases moisture upward into the root zone. It works on a similar principle to the deep root system, but it's specifically designed for spreading moisture across a wider area rather than a single deep point. Raised beds and larger container gardens benefit most. You'll need a bottle with holes drilled evenly along its length, buried horizontally a few inches below the surface, with the cap end left accessible or connected to a short tube for refilling from above. Fill it periodically, and it slowly seeps moisture outward into the surrounding soil. The common mistake is burying it too deep, below where most feeder roots actually grow, which wastes the benefit entirely. Keep it in the top 4 to 6 inches of soil, where roots are most active. This mimics soaker hose systems that can cost $20 or more for a decent length. If you've ever made your own compost tea, and then struggled to actually use it without making a mess, This next one fixes that in about 30 seconds of prep. Compost tea dispenser. Compost tea, a nutrient-rich liquid made by steeping compost in water, is one of the best free fertilizers available. But dispensing it evenly can be messy without the right tool. A modified bottle solves that. It works because slow, controlled pouring lets nutrients soak into the soil instead of running off the surface. Heavy feeders like tomatoes, peppers, and leafy greens benefit the most from regular applications. You'll need a bottle with several small holes poked into the cap, essentially turning it into a large watering can nozzle. Fill it with strained compost tea and pour slowly and directly around the base of each plant. The common mistake is pouring compost tea straight from an open container, which tends to dump it in one spot instead of distributing it evenly around the root zone. The perforated cap fixes that instantly. Store-bought compost tea brewers and dispensers can run $15 to $30. Same bottle, different job, works for dry fertilizer too. Cut a second bottle at a diagonal near the base to make a simple scoop, and pour granular fertilizer in a controlled line or ring around your plants instead of scattering it by hand. Just keep it a few inches from the stem itself, since fertilizer applied too close can burn the plant no matter how precisely you're pouring it. Which of these hacks would you build first? I'm genuinely curious whether people gravitate toward the watering fixes or the space-saving setups. We're at the final section now, and these last three are the ones I'd genuinely tell a friend to prioritize, because they solve problems that usually cost real money to fix. Number 5. The advanced surprises. These final 3 hacks go a bit further than the basics, and they're the ones that most gardeners never think to try, even though they solve some of the most stressful gardening problems out there. Slow drip vacation irrigation. This is the hack most gardeners throw away the exact tool for, and then panic the week before a summer trip trying to figure out how to keep everything alive while they're gone. It works by combining the self-watering bottle concept with a finer, slower drip, calibrated to stretch water out over several days instead of just one. Any container plant benefits, but it's an absolute lifesaver for anything in a small pot that would normally need daily attention. You'll need a bottle, a very fine needle or pin to create tiny holes, rather than the larger holes used in the basic self-watering version, and enough bottles to cover each thirsty plant individually. Poke several tiny pinholes in the cap, fill the bottle, and bury the neck a few inches into the soil near the root zone. Test it a few days before you actually leave, so you can adjust the hole size if it's draining too fast or too slow. The common mistake is testing this for the first time the day you leave for vacation, which doesn't give you time to fix a drip rate that's wrong. Set it up and test it several days ahead of any trip. A basic vacation watering stake system at a garden center runs anywhere from $10 to $25 for a small set, and most families need more than one. Watering is only one threat to a young plant, though. The next hack handles the other one, the pests that show up the moment a seedling looks even slightly vulnerable. Pest barrier. Certain garden pests, especially crawling insects like slugs, cutworms, and some beetles, struggle to get past a smooth plastic barrier, and a cut bottle ring makes a surprisingly effective physical defense around vulnerable young plants. It works because it's a purely physical barrier rather than a chemical one, which means there's no spray to reapply and nothing that washes off in the rain. Young seedlings and transplants benefit most, since they're the most vulnerable stage for pest damage. You'll need a bottle with both the top and bottom cut off, creating an open cylinder. Push the cylinder a couple of inches into the soil around a young plant, creating a physical wall crawling pests have to climb over to reach it. The common mistake is not pushing it deep enough into the soil, which leaves a gap underneath that pests simply crawl through instead of over the top. Push it in firmly enough that there's no visible gap at the base. Commercial plant collars for pest protection run around $1 to $3 each, and a garden with dozens of seedlings adds up fast. And now, the one that made me completely rethink what a single bottle is actually capable of. Hydroponic starter system. This is the hack that genuinely surprised me the most while putting this list together, because it turns a single bottle into a small, functional hydroponic growing system. No soil required at all. It works because the bottle's shape naturally separates into a reservoir section and a growing section when cut and inverted correctly, letting roots access a nutrient solution directly. Leafy greens like lettuce and herbs like basil and mint do particularly well in this kind of setup. You'll need a bottle cut roughly in half, a small piece of cloth or cotton wicking material, and either a small net cup or a piece of sponge to hold a seedling in place. Invert the top half of the bottle, cap removed, into the bottom half, so the neck sits down into the reservoir. Thread your wicking material through the neck so it hangs into the water below and sits against the growing medium above. Fill the bottom reservoir with water mixed with a diluted liquid fertilizer, and place your seedling in the growing medium at the top. The common mistake is using fertilizer at full garden strength, which is far too concentrated for a hydroponic system and can damage roots quickly. Dilute it significantly more than you would for soil, usually to about a quarter of the recommended strength. A basic starter hydroponic kit sold commercially can run $25 to $50 for something that does exactly what this bottle version does for free. So there's the full list. 13 genuinely useful bottle hacks, plus a couple of bonus tricks along the way, and every single one of them replaces something you'd otherwise be spending real money on. Here's the biggest lesson from everything we've covered today. Sometimes the most useful gardening tools aren't found at a garden center at all. They're already sitting in your recycling bin, waiting for you to look at them differently. Every bottle your family throws away this week could have been a self-watering system, a seed-starting greenhouse, a pest barrier, or even a small hydroponic setup. Once you start seeing them that way, it's genuinely hard to go back to just tossing them in the recycling without a second thought. You don't need to build all of these at once either. Pick one or two that solve the specific problem you're dealing with right now, whether that's a vacation coming up, seedlings you're trying to protect, or a summer heat wave that's drying out your containers faster than you can keep up with. And start there. The rest will still be waiting for you next season. Which hack surprised you the most? Have you already tried any of these before watching this video? Let me know in the comments, and tell me which one you're planning to build first, because I'd love to hear how it works out in your own garden. If you found these bottle hacks useful, you'll definitely want to watch my next video, where I reveal everyday household items that secretly make your garden healthier, more productive, and far less expensive to maintain. If this helped you look at your recycling bin a little differently, go ahead and like the video, drop a comment with the hack you're most excited to try, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and happy growing!